A little bit of a shift on from those by-elections there. I do have an exclusive for you now, and I think it's very, very important. And I'll get my panel to react. I know there's a heck of a lot of strong views on this, and I've got no doubt whatsoever that it's going to get a lot of you going. It's an exclusive on the Rochdale child sex gang that has spent the last 3 years fighting deportation to their home countries. The revelation is that their legal aid bill has now cost more than £2 million to the British taxpayer. Brand new Freedom of Information figures released to GB News exclusively show that the 9 men convicted in 2012 of sexual offences, often against children, including rape, trafficking, they have reached an astonishing £2 million of taxpayers' money. £44,000 in publicly funded legal help as well. The money is paid to lawyers acting for the paedophiles at trial, as well as funding years of lengthy appeals against government attempts to send them back to Pakistan. Last month, it was reported that Qari Abdul Rauf, who's 54 now, he's a former taxi driver and a preacher, don't you know, was still living in the UK nearly 9 years after he was first ordered to be deported by a judge. Our figures show that Rauf, who was told that he would be deported to Pakistan after serving time in prison, has now received, wait for it, £297,348,000 in legal aid. Absolutely astonishing. Let's just round those. So it's basically 298 grand in legal support, right? His British citizenship has been removed, so he's not even a British citizen anymore, but Pakistan, where he also held citizenship, has reportedly refused to take him back. He was jailed for 6 years after being convicted of conspiracy to engage in sexual activity with children, plural, under the age of 16, and trafficking for sexual exploitation. He was released after just 2.5 years and has since been spotted out and about on the same streets where he trafficked underage British girls for sex. He was meant to be sent to Pakistan along with this chap, Adil Khan, who's now 53. Their lawyers appealed against that decision as well. A further appeal arguing that his deportation would breach his human rights was dismissed in 2022. And in August last year, immigration judges threw out another appeal from Rauf's lawyers. 7 other members of that vile rape paedophile gang have racked up combined legal costs of almost £1.5 million, straight out of your pocket. Joined now by my panel, Daily Telegraph columnist Alison Pearson, Conservative peer Lord Sean Bailey and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. Alison, I mean, this is scandal on top of scandal on top of scandal. That newsline tonight, which we can reveal exclusively here on GB News, is that the total amount of money now that the taxpayers have spent on these monsters has gone above £2 million.
And how much has gone to the young women, the survivors of that? So one thing that's behind all you're saying, Patrick, will be these shocking... Viewers will be very shocked and listeners will be very shocked by this appalling sum of money. What we do know is that in this town and in some of the towns, there are women survivors of those grotesque acts by men like this, and they bump into them in Tesco, which can you imagine what that's like? Someone who has raped you, shared you round his friends, given you drugs to make you obedient, and they're still at large 10, 15 years later. Legal aid is not intended for convicted criminals to use lawyers to exhaust every avenue to prevent you being deported. It's an absolute travesty of what legal aid is intended for.
£2 million of taxpayers' money going to these people who raped kids, in some cases got them pregnant, threatened them with murder. They got 2.5 years in prison for that, and now millions of pounds so that they can just stay and live their normal family life, Sean.
We've been talking about the by-election recently, and what we've been talking about is a low turnout. This is the kind of thing that drives a low turnout. People think the country is a joke. You know, you have people who have what we would consider a more legitimate use of legal aid, simply will not get it. You have people who talk about immigration all the time, wanting to let everybody in, wanting to keep everybody out, but nobody talks about the abuse happening in the system. Now, the fact that you can exhaust the legal system and keep going and keep going and keep going and delay, that needs to be changed. As we discussed the Rwanda bill, there's lots of technicalities in it. And one of the things that it keeps coming up is how many times you can appeal, or if you can appeal at all. We need to go back and completely look at the immigration system again. And the last thing to be said, of course, one of the defences they've been using is that it would be a violation of their human rights. One about the human rights of the young women and young girls that I don't even want to use the word rape. They were convicted. They were convicted of some very serious wrongdoing. One about their legal rights. So when someone says to you that they want to come out of ECHR and some very high up person says, "Oh no, our international representation rep," remember that this is the kind of thing that people see. It's being used to dodge our law to affect our young people.
Your reaction to that GB News exclusive tonight, Matthew, that the legal bill now that taxpayers are paying for these animals has hit £2 million?
Well, look, like everybody, it gives a sense of revulsion. I mean, you know, what occurred with the grooming gangs in towns across the north of England, which was underreported, you know, and was handled incredibly badly by authorities scared of being accused of racism in the early days. I think things got slightly better later on, but we've still seen with Andy Burnham's done a report into Rochdale where he's looked at the particular details there, but we've got similar cases there. So on legal aid is hugely important. One of the things about legal aid is you end up paying to defend some pretty unpleasant people because it's essential that they're representing. Let me just finish, Patrick, because this is really important, which is that in this particular case, clearly, as Sean has said, it is ludicrous that they are being allowed legal aid for appeal after appeal after appeal. That is what really sticks in the throat. Yes, people are entitled to legal aid for a fair trial, no matter how awful the crime that they are being prosecuted for. But it's this endless appeals. And why are we not being able to send people back to Pakistan? We send development aid to Pakistan. Why don't we link it to the development aid? We're writing the cheque, but people won't take people back.
One of the problems as well is they were obviously given very smart legal advice, which is renounce your own Pakistani citizenship. So you can basically shred your own Pakistani passport.
I tell you something now. If we said to Pakistan, these people they're your people, they're Pakistani citizens, and by the way, if you don't take them back, you will not be getting your aid, things would change. Things would change. What we are so busy doing is talking about our international rep. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. We have to take firm action to defend our young people. I would take the money back.
OK, right. Well, look, I've just got a statement here from the Ministry of Justice, so it'd be interesting to see what they have to say about all this. One, anyone facing a Crown Court trial is eligible for legal aid, subject to a strict means test. Depending on their means, applicants for criminal legal aid can be required to pay contributions up to the entire cost of the defence if they are convicted of at least one offence with which they are charged. Legal aid in the Court of Appeal is granted by the court rather than the legal aid agency. Such legal aid is not means tested, however. It is possible for the Court of Appeal to order the recovery of some or all of the costs of representation at the end of the case. Anyone facing a Crown Court trial does have to do that. So there we go. Right.